So I've been thinking a lot about engagement. Actually, I thought about engagement a lot when I was a principal, when I was a teacher. And it's something that we all aspire to. We want kids to be engaged. And what we hear a lot, many times, is that, engagement leads to ownership, it leads to empowerment, which ultimately is what we want from our kids. Because we want to really create a system where kids are learning. So as we think about engagement, let's think about where our kids are. Now, I've gone into classrooms and I've seen kids thoroughly engaged, immersed, and so on task playing Minecraft or Fortnite. And I've seen kids so engaged in taking notes or watching a video. Many times engagement is really about compliance. So what we have to do is really, kind of like come up with a definition of, what is it we really think engagement is? And are kids actually engaged in learning? So as we think about all this, here's some questions for you to think about. Are kids really engaged? When it comes to technology, is it being used in a purposeful way, grounded with sound pedagogy? What are the learning outcomes, objectives, or targets that we want to determine whether or not kids have met those at the end of the lesson? Are kids demonstrating the construction of new knowledge? Are they creating a learning artifact or product? How are kids applying not just essential skills to demonstrate mastery, but how are they becoming competent in those skills? What type of assessments, formative, summative, are being used to determine standard attainment? How are kids being provided feedback as to their progress towards specific learning outcomes and objectives? And finally, when we think about engagement, is there alignment to the current observation and evaluation tools? So, again, we have to be very careful when we just throw around the term, we want kids engaged. We want kids engaged in learning. So as we think about learning, it's not just what kids have learned or are learning, but why are they learning it and how will they use it outside of school? Those are the three questions that I think really help us get a pulse of what's going on in our classrooms. And also, when we think about engagement, really reflect on these two questions. Are kids thinking at the highest levels of knowledge taxonomy, or are they being moved up the different levels of knowledge taxonomy? And how are kids applying their thinking in relevant ways? So, again, look at what the kids are doing and just make sure you dig a little deeper. Make sure you take that critical lens. And even if they look engaged, look at the tasks they're involved in. Maybe they're engaged in filling out a worksheet with low-level questions. Maybe they're really engaged in taking notes. Maybe they're engaged in doodling. But, so again, we can look at them, walk into a classroom, they can have that attentive behavior. But look at the tasks, look at what the kids are creating, look at the type of questions that kids are answering, see if there's academic discourse, see if there's conversations occurring, and if it's technology, see if they're actually answering questions and being pushed to think and apply their thinking. So those are some of my thoughts on engagement. I'd love to hear what yours are. Feel free to share on Twitter and LinkedIn. Thanks, everybody.